So what do you do when they claim to be the victim? This came up the other day with a person who was struggling with this, where their ex is portraying that they're the narcissist and is quoting all the terms and all the not the tactics, but the tactics that the narcissists use, and they're projecting it on the other person. And brought me back to the beginning of my situation, because that was pretty tough. Whenever I started out and I felt that, that I was the victim, I guess, and when I started hearing rumors about how bad I was and how horrible I was and everything, and basically that she was the victim, it really took me by surprise. It really shocked me, because I didn't expect it, and it was one of those things where you know how the other person's acting, you know what they're doing, and then when they turn around and they put out a facade to the world about the way things are, and it's completely different than what you think they are. So it can be really shocking when this happens, and it can really hurt. I mean, it can really make you question what's going on and make you angry and frustrated about the stories that the ex is telling you. Now, you need to prepare yourself for this, because more than likely it's going to happen, especially if you're dealing with somebody who actually is a narcissist and is looking for that sympathy and is looking for that external supply and support because of the failed relationship. And unfortunately, they cannot turn around and, there has to be a reason. See, that's the problem in these situations, is it can't be a mutual thing. They're not going to be able to say, well, we just didn't get along and we mutually decided to end it. It has to be a reason that you are no longer worthy and you are bad, effectively, to validate their story. What you might find in this situation is that, maybe you weren't telling everyone what was going on. You're playing your cards close to your vest. And then when you hear what's being said about you through, third parties or flying monkeys, then it makes you frustrated. And then you want to get your version of your story out there. You want to counter and say, no, that's not true. This is what really happened. And that's a reasonable response and a normal response. But one of the things that you have to remember about this is that, your ex, especially if they have strong narcissistic traits, lives and enjoys chaos. That chaos allows them to control their narrative, their story, and to project out what they want, right? They need that. They need the chaos for people it's almost like to keep people from taking a moment to pause, to really take a look at the situation. And it's important to remember that, because I know for me, whenever that happened, it was pretty shocking. It was like, wait a minute, what? It's like the whole story got flipped, and I fell for the bait. It was one of those things where I felt that I needed to defend myself. I felt that I needed to set the record straight. Unfortunately, once you engage in that type of activity, all it really does is it keeps the chaos going now on both sides. And either one, the person believes the other, the narc ex, and doesn't believe you, or what happens is everyone thinks that both of you are equally to blame, and thinks that you're both embellishing the stories or exaggerating it or blowing things out of proportion. Now, bottom line on this, effectively, it doesn't really matter, right? Think about it. Do you really need everyone to recognize that you were the target and you were the victim in this situation? Realistically, no. It doesn't matter, right? It's good for validation, but we already know that you're not going to get validation from most people on this. You're not going to get validation from your ex on this. You're going to get your validation by yourself. You're going to have to figure out what's going on and what the story is and what the reality of your situation is on your own. And that took me a long time to figure that one out as well. But This also rolls into a point, and I talked briefly about this on Tuesday, the previous live stream number 50, where this came up, and I was talking, in my opinion, about how it doesn't really matter whether they're a narcissist or not. It doesn't. They can be, they could be a bona fide diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder or borderline, or they could have really strong narcissistic traits. Bottom line is look at their actions and their words. Look at what they're doing, how they conducted themselves, how they treated you, and how the relationship really was. That really is the key. And everything else doesn't necessarily matter, because getting stuck on labels, getting stuck on trying to prove to everyone in the world what the other person is, all that does is it holds you back. It keeps you trapped, and it keeps you connected to your ex in a way that doesn't allow you to move forward. It doesn't allow you to start healing. Now, I absolutely understand that in the beginning stages of this, some of these things are important. Some of these things you need to do because you're doing it for yourself. You're reinforcing in your mind to yourself what's going on. But I would strongly encourage you not to dwell and not to spend too much time in that phase, because it can grab hold of you and prevent you from moving on. And that happened to me for, a long time. Part of my problem was I didn't know what I was dealing with. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again just to put it into context. When I found out about narcissism, and then I strongly suspected that my ex fit a lot of the narcissistic traits, I felt better, right? It was like, I felt like I finally had some answers. But it was one of those things where it went up and then it crashed back down. And this takes time. And I think if someone would have told me, hey, look, once you figure this out, once you learn about this and you can start connecting the dots and it starts making sense, logically you can put the pieces together and go, yeah, this finally makes sense. If someone would have said, hey, Dwayne, just so you know, when that happens, you're going to feel good. And then once the realization starts setting in, you're probably going to crash, because it's going to explain your entire marriage, and more than likely start explaining your relationships with your friends, with your family, and that can be really, really hard. So bottom line is, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter whether the people are, narcissists. You don't need to be able to go through and say, Billy is a narcissist and Jenny at work is a narcissist, right? Know it in your head. Recognize that these people are toxic, that they really don't have a place in your life, that you don't want to allow them into your inner circle or into your life any more than you absolutely have to. And phase them out and start building your life. Start rebuilding your life. That's really the key on this, because if you get caught in, your ex is this or your ex is that, it really can hold you back. Now, I get the irony that I'm doing a channel like this. And I've had some people, very few, who, think that this is a narcissistic bashing channel on my ex. And I guess technically in a lot of ways, I use my past experience as examples, but I don't necessarily care anymore about that situation with her. It doesn't matter. What I know is I know the truth of how our life was. I know what happens, her interactions with the kids, and I know the effect it has on them. I know the reality of the differences between the two houses. So the labels are irrelevant, because it's not going to fix anything, right? I'm not going to be able to go and say she's a narcissist and and then everyone's going to go, oh my God, and make a bunch of changes. The problem is I could guarantee you that she would say the exact same thing, and that's what kind of rolls back to what this beginning of this video was about, is people basically projecting the same thing back to you. All I want to say is, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you. What matters is your sphere of influence on your kids, creating that environment for them to thrive in, and creating an environment that you can thrive in as well. So on that, I'm going to wrap this up. This video was a little harder to make because the noise was a lot more, so you know, I'll have to see if I can find a better place to do this. On that, I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.